really looking forward to kind of just seeing where this organically unfolds into. Is there anything specifically that you want to kind of get into today?
That's a big question, which I haven't been asked in a very long time. Normally, I ask the questions. So much like you, but I think it would be going back to the body. And I'll give you a quick story, because everything for me goes back to the body and how we're in all of this, and in so many, like on the macro and on the micro, levels, whereby, for example, a friend of mine in Austria, her father's got a brain tumor, and he's been really quiet about it, and he's been sort of anti what the medical system wants him to do, not really saying too much. Mom and my friend, his daughter, are very much into, like, on the path, right? But he wouldn't call himself a spiritual person, let's just put it that way. But my friend and I, who we worked together a couple years ago, year and a half ago, I can't remember, in England, and we only just met that one time, working together for 2 weeks with Austrian students in a school setting. We've been in touch, and so she called on me, knowing she was able to pick my brain on, like, plant-based recipes, and I was doing the cooking stuff with the students there. Which is just one of the things. So she's been picking my brain about it, in regards to his health. And it seems as though everything that I've let go of so much. I think, as I was saying in my bio, which was the first time I've been so open about myself in a long time. I've let go of so many things. I've unlearned so many things, so as to allow the real stuff to surface. So I've been learning a lot over the last, or unlearning a lot to allow those things to surface, and hadn't really known. Like, it's just, okay, I'm, went plant-based, and that was just by feeling, and not, when I do something, I go all in, so it wasn't like, oh, I'm just gonna, stop eating meat. I start creating beautiful recipes that people are like, my God, if I had you cooking for me all the time, I would never eat meat again, and that turned into, catering a friend's business meeting, which turned into, hey, you should really teach at this cookery school. Got that, landed that, and created, developed recipes. But anyway, so my friend knows this, and I create things on the spot, and the way that I was teaching them, and she experienced in England when we were together at the school, was, I'd have ingredients, have the kids come in and say, look, this is my idea, what's yours, let's just play. And it's always about play. So so going back to her father, over, since coming back, I've felt, since July 4th, coming back to Canada, I felt really sort of like a tornado, just, what the heck? I loved what I was doing over there, and I love Europe, and being back in Canada after 15 years, what the heck? It's never felt like home. And of course, in this situation in the world, it was like, well, you got to go and be with family. Like, this now is the time. And so it was kind of like, okay, pushed into. So anyways, I'm doing more of what I've always been doing, but now it's just, even to me, it's becoming apparent, like, just now, to bring it, to narrow it down, with her father, who's, I think he's in his maybe late 50s, he's walking barefoot on earth, and he's taking in loads of vitamin D. I suggested that he write a letter to the tumor that he has, and treat it like a 5-year-old child who's asking for his attention. So he's doing all these things, and they're asking me about food and all this stuff. And over the last, I would say last year and a half, I got into SOS free, just because, actually, for me, and that's salt, oil, sugar free style of eating. And for me, to be honest with you, it was about dropping, the extra weight that I picked up, and not wanting to do a prolonged fast anymore. Like I've done numerous 21, 28 day fasts, and incredible. I love it. The spiritual aspect to that is it's just phenomenal. But I was like, I didn't want to do that again, and I needed it because it was also becoming a crutch. Do you know what I mean? I can easily drop weight that way, and that's been like an issue for a long time throughout my life. And God, I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. I think that's probably the first time live like this, which I think is a really big deal, because it's not just me. It's a heavy program that I would say most people suffer from, and it's not a female thing. God, I'm totally going like this, but that also is me. But it's not a female only thing. It's very much a man thing. I've seen with and been with men who would be called anorexic. If someone were to actually study them, in the same way that we look at women, and also, children, like it's a heavy program that we are indoctrinated. Food is so massive. And so I think, going back to my friend's father, and where I am today and what we can focus on, it's, going through, I had a fitness program that I started in Slovakia, and it was awesome. Lots came of it, and I threw it aside. At the point where I was going to be more sponsored by Reebok, Adidas, and just like about to do CrossFit training in Vienna to tack on to what I was already doing. And the night before, I was just like, no, doesn't feel right, can't do it. And I've done that a lot in the last, since I was in Slovakia, where I'll just drop something like that because it doesn't feel right. And sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, so scary to do that, to what I landed a job in Tuscany as a vegan chef in a villa that was so specific. All the food was locally sourced, like in the woods behind the villa. It was a dream job, and it didn't feel right. And all of that led to like being nearly homeless and surrendering, long story short. And then I started working in Austria with beautiful students who, oh man, so that was me coming back here. So here's the focus, if there is any. I am a true artist, I suppose, and there's just so many things, but teaching is very, I can't but teach, and it's almost a detriment to myself, because I can't not do it. And it's so much about like going back to the body. My mom will say something like, oh, my knee's hurting. I'm like, Ma, did you talk to your knee? Like, did you have a conversation? And I've just learned to stop, because this stuff, it works. It sounds like frou-frou or whatever you want to call it, but it really, like, this is the stuff that we need to teach in schools. So going back to so I went through the fitness, dropped that, didn't make sense. I was in nutrition, and I was working with people who had been to their doctors for their cholesterol, their blood pressure, whatever, and and I would ask them to keep a food diary, and they would do that for like a week, whatever. Now, I'm not a trained anything except fashion designer. And so, I would ask them to do that, and we'd work together. And for the first time, their cholesterol levels were coming down, just because of, I don't think it was just because of diet, but that was one of the things to that, was that like, their doctors never asked them. I asked all of my clients how many, whose doctor had asked them about food. Zero, none, never. It just didn't make sense. Anyways, so I eventually, but we saw clients change. I mean, I still have friends today anyways. So, but eventually I dropped that, because then I got into the to the self-healing. And that started with emotional freedom technique. It went through Ho'oponopono. It went, it took many, Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer, it took many, many, many turns. And then all roads led to God. In this amazing way. Like and Jesus, I never ever cared for Jesus, and still, like, it, and this is by no means a religious thing. My parents practice their religion, and what it's not a religious thing. It's just this, like, and I'll tell you, actually, where is it now? I don't have it handy, but it was all through a book called The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. I read this book, and I would wake up at 5 a.m. just to be able to sit and read it in quiet, in absolute solitude. And I would just sit there and weep, just cry, because it just resonated so much. And so anytime I'm up against something, it's always going back to just the one single source. And even this morning, I sat in front of the computer because I had, like, bookmarked the violet flame, which everything's valid, and I think everything's a stepping stone to the one source. So I'm like, and this is what Jesus's work was, right? Like, don't focus on me. I'm just the messenger. Focus on the message, and that's it. That's it. So that's where I'm at now, where we can go through all sorts of things, just go directly to God. And that's and so that's where I am. And God is the body. God is our emotions, right? That is when we are experiencing negative emotion, that's us parting from God. But God never leaves our side. The universe spirit never leaves us. Never, never, never. We are unconditionally and wholly loved, so loved. And it is in those moments where, if we can recognize, and this is the teaching, if we can recognize that, like, I'm feeling this way and it's shitty, and I need to just surrender it. And often what I say to myself is, baby, you're not driving this car. You're trying to, and this isn't your car to drive. Give it up, and in the moments that I can remember that quickly, oh man, bliss, and that's the teaching, so but yeah, going back to, dropped the fitness, dropped the nutrition, dropped so much. I was so, like, loud on social media, right? So loud and so there. By the time I left Slovakia, it was like, she's still in the country, like, what happened? And I had to get really quiet, so there was a lot of, it's so when you told me your story, like, I can't, when I say I love you, it's I fully know your path. I've been there. We've been on parallel lines, like, absolutely parallel. Actually, even to the extent, and I thought of you when my mom said the other day, she's like, you're so angry. And said something about herself, and she was diagnosed with bipolar a long time ago, and she's on a concoction of meds, and she's even keel, right? And she's like, look at me, and I'm okay. And I was like, and she didn't specifically say bipolar, but I just said, Ma, are you saying again that this is bipolar? And she's like, well, like, she didn't say anything. And I said, that's okay with me. It's all right with me now. You can call it whatever you want, but emotion is good. Emotion is God. This is like, if you look, just look at a baby, look at a toddler, and the emotions that they can go through. There's so many videos on YouTube, like a 40-second video of a child going through all the emotions, and we don't call them bipolar. You know what I mean? It's like they're going through everything. We don't learn about emotions, period.
except to switch off the bad ones, you know, the anger and the rage, and don't have a temper tantrum, and don't. I forgot this. I used to make, when I was on Facebook, I did a whole bunch of live videos, Facebook Live, about emotional intelligence, and how, like, you know, we are, you know, that part of us, the emotions part, we're never taught, you know. And here we are in our formative years, up until the age of 8. Well, we are a whole bunch of adults, and I can say this for myself at present. You know, I have this conversation with my inner child, that I'm still that 8-year-old kid looking for attention. I am. And most of us are, because we never got, you know, it was that no, shut up and smile, or whatever it was, you know. But it wasn't like, you're beautiful, I love what you just did, or what, you know, can tell me more about that. And the real conversations that we should be having with children, it is. And so I jumped from like fitness, nutrition, and teaching people how to heal. Oh God, wait, before I jump, I had a cookie business. This is amazing, in Bratislava. And it was because I wasn't, my partner at the time, my great love at the time, and I, you know, we're both like healers, and we were trying to write this book, The Modern Alchemy for Emotional Freedom, based on tapping, based on emotional freedom technique. And that just didn't really, you know, did a crowdfunding campaign, wasn't really going anywhere. So it was like, he would go off and, you know, help people, and I would, and whatever, but it wasn't covering the rent, you know. So there came a point where I was like, we just weren't making much. And so I would bake cookies to take over to people's places instead of a bottle of wine, because cookies were really cheap, but the cookies were really good. So and it was a basic chocolate chunk cookie, you know. And so eventually my then partner took it to a cafe that he used to frequent, and they're like, send her in, please. So I went in with samples, and they asked for me to return the following week. They put in an order, and I had to borrow money for the ingredients. Like, it was at that stage. And within a month and a half, we had 9 cafes under our belt. And yeah, it was brilliant. And eventually we had a company that had 5, they had franchised their cafe, and they would pick up the cookies from us, instead of my partner having to like lug them around from place to place. And we're talking like the hipster cafes in Bratislava, right in central by the castle sort of thing. Eventually, so yeah, we went exclusive with this one company, and it was brilliant. They came and picked up everything. They paid us cash, which was wonderful, and everything was cash. And they were so happy and I see how it ended, why it ended, how it ended. But I was experimenting with all kinds of things, like different recipes and whatever. Came up with a vegan recipe because it wasn't originally, you know, and oh man, it was brilliant. It was brilliant until it wasn't. And I said, you know, we keep doing this, or we said, we keep doing this as long as it's heart-centered, because I wasn't doing it for the money. I mean, money was great, right? But I loved what I was doing. I loved it so much. And it was so liberating. It was just cookies, but it was baking. It's putting your energy into the foods. And I remember, you know, doing my first market. I think it was a Christmas market, and I was there, and I chopped up like the peppermint chocolate chunk cookie, which isn't a usual thing in Slovakia. Like, it's not common. And people would try it, and to see the look on their faces, like, it was literally Christmas. It was Christmas. And there was such joy in that. There was such a joy in that. It was beautiful. And so yeah, you know, we said that we would continue doing it as long as it was heart-centered, and the people that we were working with, you know, were of the same mind. And they were, and then
They weren't. And it ended literally from one day to the next in a meeting where I just felt really pinched. And my partner at the time, he's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to, he was amazing. He was an amazing sort of director. He's like, do you want to put up with this? Or like, you can do anything you want. This is absolutely your call. And I said, no, don't want to. And that was it. He made a phone call and we were done. But it was 9 months of intense work, creativity. It was so fantastic. And then the downside of that was that it was like a miscarriage right at the end of those 9 months, right? And I couldn't. And soon after that, so this is where the journey stepped up, though, because it was soon after that that I came to Canada, and I spent a year here, just letting go even further. You know, the relationship by then fell apart, and I was just, I didn't know what I was here for. I didn't know. And all I knew is that I was going to go back. And I didn't know what I was going back for. I was trying to put it together, a wellness program that would be online, and it would involve all the things that I had let go, but in a different way, in a very holistic way. So it would have been the fitness and the nutrition, but now with the meditation and the stillness and creativity, creative writing. That's such a big part of the me that is today. And it is something that I've pulled into with my students, always having them, you know, foreshadow their life from right now. So write to me from 5 years and tell me what happened in your life. And a lot of the time I was looking for imagination and creativity, because I knew, I guess it was a bit of an experiment, but most of the time kids are so like depressed, suppressed, oppressed, and that imagination was gone already by like 9-10 years old. So a lot of the time I was walking into a classroom and the kids are like, who the heck is that? Like, what just walked in? And, you know, they'd call me like Mary Poppins, and, you know, and I knew we needed to do things differently, because this is what I saw, Laura, that I was seeing the same things, same problems in kids that I experienced when I was in school 30 years ago at their age. So I'm seeing girls, oh man, they would write me letters, and it was intense. I got a set of letters from one of the girls who wouldn't give them to me while I was in school. So they were like 1 week, maximum 1 week projects, and I was all over Austria. So different school, different kids, different teachers, different city, different everything, every project that I was on, depending on the company that I was working for. But it was pretty much freelance. Yeah, these letters, one of the girls who was just an absolute shining star, you know, in the classroom, and she confided in me that she was cutting herself, and that, you know, she lived with her father and she was so scared and all this, you know. And then there was school, and you know, it was one of the questions that I would walk in and say, who likes school? Nobody, you know. And then I was like, all right, so that's kind of normal. And then I started asking different questions, like, you know, so what's your most favorite thing? This would be like one of the first things after I would ask them to guess my name and where I'm from, things like that, which were just like icebreakers, and really fun to know that actually I'm safe, and this isn't going to be a normal 3 days or week or whatever it is. And I would ask them, you know, what's your most favorite thing that you learned last month in school? Silence, crickets. You know, how about the whole year? How about, you know, forever? And the one thing that I remember one of the kids saying was that she loved learning about the oh my goodness, can I remember it right now? Pythagorean theory. She loved that. And I was like, bless you, mathematics, but we'll go into sacred geometry and numerology, and that's where my, you know, and she was such a creative, incredible being, but that was the only thing. It was the only thing. And otherwise it was like, yeah, this teacher was really nice, but like, so what are we doing? So my sort of thinking was, look, you know, here I am with these guys who hate being in school. The only reason, if they like school, it's because their friends are here. And shitty for kids that don't have friends at school, like me, you know. Yeah, no surprise. You know, shitty for them. And that's what I had. So many underdogs come to me and be like, they were just so surprised when I would tell them that, no, I was like the nerd, I was the loser. You know, you are not a loser, because you're put in the system, the situation that expects you to fit. You know, you are a beautiful, light, shining being that doesn't even belong in an institution like this. And that's why even now, when people are like, we got to get our kids back to school and whatever, and I understand that makes sense in this, with this global gimmick that's going on, but really, we don't want our kids in there, because they're suicidal and they're not talking about it. They're depressed and they're not talking about it. I had a class of kids that were like 12 years old. We're playing a game, and it's called Everybody's Who. Everybody Who. So everybody who likes cats, stand up, move to a different chair. Person who's left standing comes into the middle, blah, 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 whatever. And I said, and this was an opportunity for me to really get to learn them and ask questions that maybe I couldn't otherwise. And so I would say, everybody who loves themselves, and no one would stand up, or like two people would stand up, like two, you know, and that would stop the game for me. And then I would just say, like, everybody who doesn't like themselves, stand up. Majority of the class stands up, and then we get into a conversation about it. And girls are like, I'm too fat, I'm not pretty, and all that. Like, same thing as when we were growing up. What is school doing? Nothing. Right? There's no new, we cannot call these kids the future. I think we were talking about this the other day. We can't call them the future if we're giving them the same tools that we had. That's absolute. It's a crime. It's an absolute crime, and it's bullshit. You know, we prepare them in public school for high school, in high school for college or university, and that's to prepare them for real life, where they like go to a job that they hate to impress the neighbors and and the friends and whatever, only to go on this hero's journey. And you know what my deal is? I love kids so much. I don't want them to go on the hero's journey, because they remain intact, and they are the hero from the moment that they're born, and their light never gets dimmed. And that's what I want. And I know it's a tough situation right now for parents, and it's so layered, but school education is so big for me. God, that was a big rant. But and education includes, I mean, gosh, love, the body. It comes back to spirit, it comes back to God, and that should be in schools, but absolutely not in a religious sense, you know. And God is such a beautiful word. It's the highest vibrational word, you know, and I understand, like, people have a hard time with that word, unfortunately, and I was an atheist, I was agnostic and whatever, and I think that's what I'm learning, and walking into the unfamiliar and uncomfortable does to you, is it rips off all the blinders, it rips off all the layers. There's still layers to go through, but doing that again and again and again, walking in the dark, not alone though, with God always. Which is, you know, I used to say I'm a soloist and I, you know, one woman show and whatever. I'm not. No way, man. You know, I absolutely am driven by God. Absolutely. And when I'm not is when I'm freaking out. And when I remember, I come back into the passenger seat. I was born in the UK and raised born in London, England, raised in London, Canada, which honest to goodness, I thought it was a bad dream for the longest time. I thought it was a bad dream and we were going back. And and that's the thing as well. I think all my experiences as all my experiences teach me how to be with children, and I've got a great friend in Slovakia who I had the pleasure and honor, absolute honor, of living with her family. They're a young couple and they've got 3 daughters now. When I was living with them, there were 2, and the mom, Monica, she teaches parents, she's essentially teaching parents how to be conscious with their children, and bringing them into so it's you parents to be, who are pregnant and they don't even have kids yet. And just like, so one of the things that I picked up from her was that, just because baby isn't responding and talking at like 3 weeks old or whatever, it doesn't mean that they don't know that you're not in the room, right? So she would always, like, if she and I, like, if we're walking along, if we're outside and she's got the stroller and needed to go do something, just as an example, she would say to the baby, look, Marushka's or Manj's gonna take over right now, and I'm gonna be right back. 3 weeks old or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So I got to, I've been blessed to love some great men in my life. And I've been blessed. I don't know anyone else who can say this. I'm blessed to relive my childhood through that family, in such a loving, safe, in such a way that, like, she would say to me, how you haven't had children, but you understand, like, how do you get it? And so it was this constant, like, just I observe a lot. And I listen and I ask a lot of questions like you. I can't remember why I said that. I don't know where that came from. Oh, I think, yeah, I don't know, whatever. Gone.
We were talking about when you went over to the UK after you were married.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. No, thank you. The point was there. Having lived with this family and learned all these things, if they tell their 3-week-old, I'm going to go to the bathroom right now when no one else is in the room, right? Here we were jumping from country to country, and really literally it was traumatic, and I didn't know that. I didn't know at 3-4 years old that we weren't going back to the grandparents. I didn't know what was going on. There was no conversation, or if there was, I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure there wasn't, like, darling, so we're going to jump on an airplane right now and we're going to go to Canada and it's going to be wonderful and you're going to go to school there and blah blah blah. There was none of that. And then to no fault of my parents, they didn't know, right? They've done, and God bless them, they've done their absolute best. Even that conversation with my mom the other day that I was talking about with the bipolar, God bless her. She's just we're only a mouthpiece for what we know, yeah. Right? And so here I am, the kid that wasn't liked in school, or just absolute introvert, let's just say it that way. Every now and again I'd have a friend, but went through all those experiences, was with my ex-husband, which wasn't a good experience for us. I love him to bits and I respect him. I think he's a brilliant man. It just wasn't, it was bad timing. It just, I had to get out on my own. And now, it's been 15 years of, like, a whole lot of trial and error to come back to me, in the last few years, it's been that, and being okay with, like, when I was saying that I was almost homeless when I gave up that job in Tuscany, or when that didn't pan out, I was ready to be homeless. I was ready for it. And here I was, I had gone to the homeless shelters. I had been introduced by a dear friend I cooked for our homeless brothers and sisters. I did that a couple of times with other people, and once on my own, and I served them food. And I'd been to the shelters. I knew what it was all about because I had been brought in as like perhaps cooking for them. But then in the end, talking to the directors, they were like, we just had such a beautiful feeling about each other. I said, I don't know what to do, because they were in a situation whereby, something needed to give. They needed more money to develop the center, to not develop, make it bigger because more people were coming through. And in the end, I was like, no, we need to get art in there. We need to get these people, that's another big can of worms, is homeless brothers and sisters who generally we think of as like, we need to reintegrate them into society. Hell no, they left the system on purpose and with good reason. I spoke to a man for like 2 hours, beautiful young guy, was walking from my parents to my sister's place where I stay. It's about a month ago. And I meet this guy, Mike, and he and I, we chatted for like 2 hours. And he's brilliant. He's a beautiful guy. And he told, and we were able to just go back and forth. And he should be where he is. He's a forest guy, right? But and it doesn't make sense for him to be back into the system. It really doesn't. But the system does need to change. And that's what we're doing right now anyways. That's what's happening. So working for the Mikes of the world, working for the children of the world, getting us back in touch with ourselves, because I know you know this, Laura, that our outer world is just a projection of our inner world. And like I went to a freedom celebration on Saturday here in London, I went with great caution because I'm so like, I don't want to protest, I don't want to protest anything. Where does that get you? Let's fight against breast cancer. Let's fight against this and fight against that. And is that over? How are we doing with that, right? So I was very cautious about going because I wanted it to be a big party. And we did speak about that. And you know what? It ended up being so wonderful. It was so heart-centered. It was so wonderful to see people standing up with a microphone talking about God and talking about spirit and bringing spirit back. And just listening to Rainer Fulmich from Germany, who's working on all of this global situation. Beautiful man. I listened to a conversation between him and a lawyer from Quebec, Desjardins, I can't remember his last name, and Stefan Blair, I think it was, I can't remember exactly, but I come to the end of that interview yesterday, and there is Rainer Fulmich, this big lawyer who's taken down Deutsche Bank, who's taken down Volkswagen, and now he's working on this beautiful COVID thing, and he's talking about spirit. And bringing spirit back into the equation, because like that's the greatest deception ever, separating spirit from science, separating spirit from ourselves, and all the offshoots that came from that deception, which in my view is religion, is education as we know it, is big pharma, is all the stuff that we see that's all crumbling. Thank God.
Yeah.
So
I remember when in Brantford, I volunteered for a youth center, and it was during a time when I was going through a lot because I was doing traveling. I'd started volunteering there before I did my travels, and then I got back and hit my lowest point, so I took some time off, and then I was very much in the sacred sojourn of the soul, which is the soulful perspective of the hero's journey that I've been working on in the book that eventually I'll get out. And I share this because I wanted to share this with the kids or with the youth that were at this center. Yeah. And I would go, and I didn't know how to be anything other than me in these experiences with the youth that I was with. And so some of these kids would come to me and ask me about demon possession or about entities, and they would be asking me these really out there questions because I'm the mentor or volunteer that would show up and bring oracle cards and let them
Yes.
choose them, or bring The Gift of
Yes.
Imperfection by Brene Brown.
Yes.
And it was
Yes.
so powerful because I
Yes.
knew that I was feeding a part of them and their souls that they weren't getting anywhere else.
Yes.
And then I was told that I was not a fit for the center
Of course.
and that I needed to start something of my own because it actually is a religiously based uh, foundation that is not. But the ones who founded it started out with reading the Bible to kids in the park locally, and then it expanded into other things. So
Ah.
it was covert in its
Ah.
foundation in religion. And so, and a spiritualist like myself that came in offering a different perspective directly contradicted the covert intention for it. And when I was pushed out and told that I need to start something of my own because you're great, but we can't really bring what you're trying to offer into the center, it was like that hurt so deep because
Yeah.
I didn't know how I was going to be able to actually bring what I had to offer out to public in a bigger way. And
Mm-hmm.
it's I hear myself in your story, and now I understand so much more when I was telling you my story as to why it was like, oh my god, you're just sister of a like color. It's just we are not built in the conventional way, and we don't think the conventional way.
No.
And
No.
it's like we're diagnosed with bipolar if we allow
Yes.
ourselves to get to the place of actually letting the system put a diagnosis on us, which allows them to
Yes.
control us, which is
Yes.
what this whole system is working towards. If we are not willing to stand in our power and say, yes, I am extreme. Yes, I do live at a high level. And yes, I do go to a really low level if I allow the fear to knock me out of alignment with my source. But we had to go through those experiences in
Mm-hmm.
order to be who we are, to know what we do, to be able to build what we're organically building and allowing to unfold as the conduits for source, grand overall designer, whatever you want to call that which flows to and through all of us, if we are willing to get out of the way of our ego that edges God out so that we can actually show up fully present in this moment to do what we're here for and feed the souls of those that are just hungering for the sacred.
I love it. I love you. I love you. Like, and I don't, there's no lightness in that. That is, yes. Yes.
Ditto.
Yes.
Fully
Yes.
ditto, truly. And
It's
so today we didn't know what was going to unfold in this conversation. And ultimately, I started the camera rolling early on because I didn't know what was going to happen, but I figured something was going to happen as we figured out what was meant to happen. And so this is truly a reflection of organic unfoldment at its finest. And so, what has come out today, I would love to know what you have to say. So, please do comment below. And I'm going to just share part or most of all of this, if that's cool with you.
yes,
Because what,
absolutely fine.
what you said, Manj, is just such a breath of fresh air, truly, because people are not having these conversations. Like I
Yeah.
had an eating disorder when I was getting to the end of high school and the start of university, and then finally kicked when I graduated. And it was just like, why am I punishing myself? Why am I
Yes.
putting myself through this of being bulimic and like eating? And
Yes.
do you know why I started it? Because I
Mm.
had outperformed my self image by dating the most popular guy in school, one of my friends had told me. And I outperformed my self image as a loser. And because I did that, I wanted my cake and to eat it too. And so then I started to binge, and then I would purge and punish
Mm-hmm.
myself
Mm-hmm.
because I could have it all if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Get, I
And
100% get that.
And
Yeah.
it was the craziest thing because
Yeah.
it wasn't until in retrospect that I realized that. And it was like when my parents were still married and like we'd have our family meals, and I my job was doing the dishes after the meal, and I didn't get along very well with my mom because she needed me to be something that I wasn't. And so I would basically eat as quickly or as little as I could just to kind of fill the void, and then I'd wash the dishes to get out and away, because I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to be in a space where I couldn't authentically be me, and I didn't understand that. So like I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
anorexic on purpose. I just don't have I eat to live, not live to eat.
Yes.
Except for
Yes.
when I was a big stoner and would get munchies and really go down that road and just fill the void of further self-loathing.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just like food has become such a tool to use to abuse ourselves that we
Yeah.
really need to be having these conversations transparently and authentically, to say that our parents have done the very best that they could with what they had the capacity to do. And it's
Yes.
like sometimes I say things and it's just like, my mom takes it personally because she feels like it's an attack, but it's just like, I'm really just trying to understand how I became me. Like why I was
Yes.
the me that wasn't me, but was because I was there, and now I'm here because now I'm looking and saying, okay, I just need to love that little girl inside that's still inside of there, that's hungering for something. And now I'm able to feed myself because I didn't have somebody that could feed her in a way that actually met her needs.
Yes.
And it's like if we
Yes.
can have these kind of conversations rather than try to step in and set it up so that it's an interview in a structured linear way, that it unfolds specifically how it's meant to, and go after that perfectionism syndrome that is
Yeah.
crippling especially our youth, but the parents that are trying to raise those youth
Yep.
that have
Yep.
OCD and all of these control dysfunctions,
Labels.
labels.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
of it is just because we're so misaligned with the truth of who and whose we are.
Bless you. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. 100%. We've got it all. We've got it all wrong. All of it. All of it. My vision is like having children around, right? And you're able to just sit and meditate. They're playing whatever, but then they just join you because of the frequency, and there's no like, okay, so you're gonna learn meditation. They just grow up knowing that, not even that it's called that, but just that, like, it just feels so good, and it just is such a natural part of them. And stillness and being bored, start that, like, let oh man, kids and toys, these days, forever, right? When you just need to hand that child a cardboard box with a wooden spoon. No, I've not been a parent. I haven't been blessed yet, but and yeah, I suppose everyone says I would do it differently, but really, I think it's such an honor to have a child. It's the greatest gift in the world. And to be a woman, and I don't mean this as like a man versus woman thing, but to have incarnated into this lifetime as a woman, wow, that's powerful. To have this body, that, like, just to think that, like, I abused myself so much, not just with food, with all kinds of things, but and we didn't even talk about menstruation and stuff like that, which is so important, such an important conversation that we're not having in schools. And the sanctity of that. I've had a situation where, just real quick, I was with a class. It was a 5-day program, and in the class, these kids were all over the place. They were really, they weren't cohesive within themselves. And I think it was by the Wednesday of a 5-day program. There was I had them in groups doing something. It's just after break. One of the girls runs into the classroom, and she was late, which is not a big deal for me. And then she runs back out, and I was like, "Is she okay?" You know. And one of the guys, like the funny guys, was like, "Oh, she's having her days," and I was like. And it just started to roll, and I was like, "Bingo, let's go." And she's having, and I said to him, "What's that?" And he's like, "She's having her days." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And he's like, "She's having her period." And I was like, "Oh, okay. What is that?" And then I was asking question after question after question. And by now, the whole class is involved. Like even the kid who's way in the back and he's an artist and he's drawing and he's like, maybe too cool for school sort of thing. Even he has stopped and he's in the conversation, paying attention. And that was so beautiful. By the end of it, I had two girls, like the popular girls. Two of them came up to me and they're like, "Can we hug you?" Like we've never had that conversation before. And that was so beautiful, And we're talking like 12, 13-year-old kids, and even the boys, because it's so much about them. It's not this dirty, horrible thing. We're here because of, mom didn't get a period and I came and said, we need to talk about that. And boys need to be a part of that conversation. So here we are coming through life, and I didn't. And it was my partner who I did cookies with who introduced that to me. And I think I was in my late 30s by the time we were having that conversation. And he brought in The Red Moon by Deborah, I think it's Deborah Gray. And he read that book about menstruation and women and the cycles that it's a big conversation, the cycles that we go through, blah, 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 whatever. And that's when it was introduced to me. And I'd gone through most of my life not knowing how incredible I am as a woman, and there's so much more to it. But so here we are, and that hasn't changed in school or parents, actually, so in my imagination, when my little girl's running around, it's not like, oh, I've got to one day, teach her about the birds and the bees. It's not that. It's that she knows from day one where she's come from, and so yeah, complete realignment of education for everybody. God, I would love to work with parents to be and have these kinds of conversations. But I think before even that, we need to have the conversations with our own bodies and the things that are going on, before even thinking about having kids, because our body is a representation of our inner child that's still calling for our attention and always will, in the way that we've been raised. And we've got a lot of reckoning to do with our body. So yeah, I think it's education on all fronts.
It absolutely is.